Today I'm talking about 10 things that I learned selling Monsters in the Woods back in 2012 and how they apply today. In 2012, I made and released a horror movie called Monsters in the Woods, starring Glenn Plummer, Lee Perkins, and Edward Hendershot. At the time, I had a blog, yeah, who didn't, and wrote a bunch about making movies. I thought it might be fun and helpful to revisit some of that thinking and see how the logic holds up in today's market. Remember, all the then statements were written back in 2012, so they might be, well, kinda out of date. Number 1, found footage is dead? Then, low-budget found footage movies are out of vogue. I had a few distributors pass on Monsters in the Woods because they didn't want another camera crew movie. Which sucks because Monsters in the Woods isn't actually a found footage movie. Well, the first 5 or 10 minutes might be, at least in the original cut, as the first act is told from the point of view of the behind-the-scenes camera crew in the movie within a movie. But after that, it switches back to a traditional format. Now, this probably isn't so much true today. Honestly, I don't know. I haven't made a found footage-esque movie since then. In fact, rereading that statement, I don't even think they were talking about the found footage element. I think they were talking about the movie about movies thing, which are a hard sell in any time period. Now, there have been a slew of successful micro-budgeted found footage movies over the past few years, so I would say that this probably doesn't hold water right now. In fact, especially with quarantine and shared screen movies becoming a thing, there'll be a whole new wave of these, I bet. Depending on the quality and marketing, these could definitely hit. Number 2, distributors don't even watch the whole thing. Then, distributors give a movie about 5 to 10 minutes to pique their interest before shutting it off. And even then, more often than not, they'll only watch the first bit and the last bit of the movie. Now, I'd say this is pretty much still true. I'd say some of the lower end distributors probably don't even watch the movies at all. If your art and trailer are good enough for them, that's all they need. Number 3, a great and known working actor does not guarantee a good quick sale. Then, Glenn Plummer, star of Saw 2 and a bunch of other movies, did give the movie some legitimacy, but didn't really boost the sales. Now, I did a video about cover box casting a few weeks ago. I think that still holds some water here. While I don't think Glenn actually fits into that cover box casting category, there are certain name actors you can cast that can actually hurt your films. Number 4, sex and violence guarantee a good quick sale. They probably helped more than they do now. It can actually hurt, especially on Amazon. A number of small indie movies have recently been purged for excessive and pervasive violence and nudity. Number 5, a cool trailer doesn't guarantee a good and quick sale. Then, I had a pretty kick-ass trailer for Monsters in the Woods, but still had a bit of trouble finding that first distributor. Now, while a good trailer certainly won't guarantee a quick sale, it definitely doesn't hurt. And to be honest, looking back at that particular trailer, it wasn't so awesome. A good movie does not guarantee a good sale. True then, it's true now. This is probably even more true now than it was then. Back then, even a mediocre micro-budgeted film could earn a pretty good amount with proper marketing. Whereas today, you can have an exceptional indie movie that just sits and earns pennies. Number 7, the only money you make will be up front. Then, while you can make money on the back end, the only way to guarantee a decent payday is to get paid up front during production. Make it part of the budget, which was way more common back then. I actually knew all this going into Monsters in the Woods, but I dove in anyway. Now, honestly, I just had no real idea back then of how the business worked. If you're being hired onto a gig, well, then this is definitely true. But when producing and owning your own material, you'll usually only make money on the back end. Number 8, film festival friendly movies and sellable movies are often two very different things. I'd say this is still true. I see many festival darlings with a ton of laurels and good reviews and perceived momentum that just go nowhere. It's no secret that I'm not super into the whole film festival thing. I know they can be good for some filmmakers and others have used them to great success. but they're just not my jam. I've personally always just went straight to market. Number 9, it takes time to find a good distributor. Unless you have an existing relationship with a good, reliable, and honest distributor, it can take a year or more to find one. It took me almost a year to secure distribution for Monsters in the Woods after its completion. I'd say this is probably still kinda true. Although today, there's so much info out there on distribution, it's much easier for you to do your research now than it was then. It's just now you have to also deal with a ton of disinformation. Number 10. Just because you're passionate about the movie doesn't mean the audience will be. On this one, I'm just going to go to the now. It's still kind of true. It brings to mind a screenwriting quote. Just because something is true or actually happened to you doesn't necessarily make it interesting in the context of a movie. Bonus. So Monsters in the Woods was one of those titles where I got hosed on the initial distribution. The distributor wasn't exactly dishonest or anything like that. They just didn't really know how to sell that movie. And aside from a couple small regional and foreign sales, it just didn't get much of an initial release. It wasn't until a few years after, once I was able to wrestle the rights back from them, that I took a second look at it, completely recut it, and released it through Amazon and a few other outlets. Then, a little while after that, when it was just starting to pick up steam, it was unceremoniously purged by Amazon. But all hope is not lost. The director's cut was very recently selected by Tubi TV. It should be up there any day now, and it may be making a reappearance on Amazon. If you're digging my stuff, subscribe now. And if you want to help support what I'm doing here, check out my Patreon. But whatever you do, keep making movies.
Who are you?
I'm an actor.
That's what we're doing here.